Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a chess game which got me to a new peak rating of 2294, only one win away from 2300 against a very strong player, a 2350 candidate master. Yeah, let's just get into the chess. Already before this game I was a little bit scared because I see, of course, the rating. He's over 100 points higher. He's almost 100 points higher rated than me, and he's a CM, and that's terrifying in all honesty. But I was like, okay, I know it's going to be a problem. I'm just going to play my best chess, and yeah. So I start the game with d4. My opponent goes d5, and I play the move bishop to f4, the London system, something that I play very often, and I have a decent bit of success with it. Knight f6, I play e3, and my opponent decides to go with this line with the move g6, trying to enter into a fianchetto setup in a Grunfeld type position if I go with some c4 at some point. I decided to play knight f3. Pretty much just a developing move. I'm going to play it anyway, so I played now. Bishop to g7, of course, and c4 is the move I choose because I kind of just like taking bits and pieces away at the center, like putting some pressure on the center in these London positions. It's just something that I think it's good because it puts some pressure on my opponent, and I thought, okay, well, c4 isn't a mistake now because he's not going to really have the time to open up this bishop if I play c4. Like, it's not something that's really hurting me, and I really would enjoy putting my knight on c3 to start putting pressure on this pawn. My opponent decides to take after a little bit of a think because, well, what else are you supposed to do? If you play like a c6 move, I'm probably just going to play knight c3. Now you have a center to worry about, and he just didn't like keeping the tension here. Of course, with the top engine line with a move like castles or something, you have to immediately think about this move cd5, knight d5, bishop to g3, and, sorry, not bishop to g3. Oh, I need to play bishop e5 here instead of the bishop. So like bishop e5, you can't really play f6. If you trade off the bishop, you've lost your good bishop. I'm sure you didn't like something along that line. And also, by the way, if you take with the queen, this is just bad. First of all, let's say you don't hang a pawn. Knight c3 is just a very strong move, developing a knight with tempo, and the queen would have to go back. Of course, there I would obviously be taking the pawn for free, but yeah, Anyway, he takes, allowing me to develop my bishop. Then he castles. I decide to play the move knight to c3. Pretty simple standard. I'm taking control of some centered squares. The knight belongs in the square. I have a very beautiful setup located in almost any beginner chess book with center control of the pawns and all of my minor pieces developed. My opponent goes c5 now, and this is the first real issue of the game. c5 immediately is a little bit scary. My first instinct is, okay, c5 at the base of it is technically a free pawn, so can I take it? Is taking it an option? And I ended up deciding not to do this because I immediately looked at it and I was like, okay, at the very least, he's able to win his pawn back with queen a5. There's not really a way for me to defend it besides queen d4, getting to like the line of this bishop. I just don't want to even calculate all that. It's probably not going to work, and I wasn't too sure that this was what I wanted to do. So okay, maybe that's not correct. Maybe I should do this, but then say, okay, the queen is bad here. Again, I don't really understand that. I'm not too sure. I kind of like where the queen is positioned on that square, kind of pinning my king. He has ideas like this. It just seems very, very flimsy, and I don't want to get into any of those lines. So after a long think, I'm like, okay, if I don't take on c5, what is he going to do? He's going to take here. And then how will I recapture? How will I recapture? Let's say I play a move like castles, which seems like the most natural move here. If I castle, which actually happens in the game, I do end up playing this move castles. He takes. If I take with the pawn, I have this IQP. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But here I decide that it's not a good decision because, well, normally when you get an IQP like this, you get something in return. You have some sort of attack, and you get some sort of pieces developed. But here, my pieces are all developed, so there's no point, and I didn't enjoy getting to that line. So when he decides to take, which is of course the best move, by the way, also, I thought this was a bit rushed. I thought this was very dry and drawish, and at the end of the line, I thought maybe he would have something. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take with the knight. I'm going to rip the band-aid off, I guess is the right term, and I'm going to say, well, you don't have any of this immediately. I don't think there's any tactics. I'm going to pray there isn't any tactics. and I still have the center control, and all of my pieces are developed, and you have two out of your 4 minor pieces on the back rank. My opponent here plays the move knight b to d7, threatening this move e5, which would fork my bishop and my knight, so I have to do something about that. There's a couple things I considered here, either knight to b5 or bishop to g3. I decided not to play knight to b5 because I didn't see a real threat, and I ended up playing the move bishop to g3 pretty quickly. Knight b6 played. I played bishop b3, of course. Attacks my bishop. This is the right square for it. I like this pressure against the king. My opponent goes knight to h5, and here's another big thing. Here's another big choice. Knight to h5 immediately, like this, like he plays it in the game. It's very aggressive. It's very aggressive, and I have to decide, is now the time to give up my dark-squared bishop? Something that's been doing a good amount of work, and for some reason, it took me a very long time to come to terms with the fact that bishop to h4 is clearly the correct move, because it's a good diagonal. When I first looked at this, and this is like actually like probably a mental block of mine. When I first looked at this, I was like, well, the bishop has to stay on this diagonal. This is the diagonal where it wants to be on, right? It controls all of these nice squares, if I can actually highlight stuff. And on h4, it's kind of looking at nothing. He's going to play it here in g5. I'm not doing too well. I don't really like where my bishop is located. And then I was like, wait, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? Bishop h4 is great. Bishop h4 is great. He can't play f6 because he would hang his king, and his pawn is hit. So this pawn is now a target and a weakness. And also, if he plays h6 g5, hello, the knight hangs. I'm just going to win a pawn and have a huge attack. What are we talking about? I don't really understand. Plus, another thing with bishop to h4, which I realized later, not right now, is that he's never going to have this idea where he has pressure on the knight. Like if I play queen f3, which I would really like to play, I really want to get my queen out of there, he's never going to really have that and just win a pawn, because this pawn is also hanging, and that pawn is worth a lot more than my pawn on d4. So I play bishop h4. After, like a minute. h6 is clearly a mistake, since it actually just weakens his structure. He's not ever going to be playing the move g5 because of queen to h5, and I would simply win a pawn with a huge attack. Also, this pawn is now actually hanging since the f7 pawn is pinned, and I might have some like tactics like queen to d3 will be actually targeting a pawn. Cool. I think for a while here about what I want to do. My main plan in this position is to play the move queen to f3, but I decided not to do this right away because I was like, okay, well, queen to f3, it doesn't really do anything right now. Doesn't it just like lose a pawn? Not exactly, because of e7, and I would win the game because the queen would be hitting this pawn. But I'm like, okay, I don't really see why I have to do this now. I kind of like where my pieces are located. I clearly don't want a queen trade since white is clearly better. I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to improve one of my pieces. I play the move rook to c1, completely fine. Rook on the c file, natural stuff. Whatever, right? Knight to f6 back, and now I'm like, okay. Now I want to play queen to f3. Now I want to play queen to f3. But there's one sneaky little trick here that I have to be very, very careful about, because if I play queen to f3, my opponent is this close to trapping my queen. Because after queen to f3, I realized that my opponent's idea might have been to play the move g5, bishop g3, and bishop to g4, which looks like it would trap my queen. My queen has no viable squares to go, which is true. But after queen to f3 and this move bishop to g4, he loses control of the b7 pawn, allowing me to simply win the game. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's all true, you're also blocked this idea, so now this is incorrect. I kind of want to start attack. I need to get my queen out of the way so I can put a rook on d1 to target the queen. Play queen f3, and I'm just going to be doing pretty well. Technically, in inaccuracy, really doesn't matter. It's a good move. Trust me, it's a pretty decent move. It keeps the advantage at plus 1.2 or something, so I'm doing pretty well here. My opponent here has a severe mental lapse and probably has like a anaphylactic seizure. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's going to be one after this game. And plays move bishop to g4 immediately, not even going for the g5 plan, which I originally was scared of. Actually, g5 now is just bad. It gets my bishop onto a better diagonal. You can't play knight to h5, and bishop g4 still blunders the b7 pawn. He plays bishop to g4 anyway, which is just insane because it loses the pawn. And now I just have to consolidate my position because now I'm up a pawn. I'm doing quite well. My opponent, I thought, probably had to play something like probably, I don't even know, like queen d7 right away, trying to trade off the queens. But then he's just going to be in a worse position. And I'm like, okay, well, you have to do this because after that there would be nothing left in the position and I would just be completely winning. And it would honestly only be, it would be like the only real way that he would be able to outplay me is if there were more pieces on the board. And since he's the better player, he probably wants to outplay me, and he's probably able to outplay me. But instead he doesn't do that. Instead he freaks out and plays g5. And I'm like, okay, g5, that's a bad move. Hit my bishop, kick it to a good diagonal. I could do that if I wanted to. Now there's no rook b8 anymore. There might be some bishop to c7. But then I'm like, okay, why do I have to move the bishop right away when I can just win another pawn? Knight c6. Hit the queen, hit the pawn. I'm just going to win. I'm just going to be up 2 pawns. I'm going to move my bishop next. And white is going to be winning the game. And at this point, I'm confident. At this point, I know, yes, I'm going to win this. I'm going to get the plus 10 points or whatever. I'm going to beat a 23. He was 23-69 at the start of this game. And I'm going to feel very happy about myself. And yeah, queen to d7. I take on e7 with the check. Very, very smooth. This whole portion of the game is very, very nice. King to h8. Of course, the correct move. You don't want to get up onto this diagonal. There might be some ideas on the light squares. I take the queen because I have to. And I thought bishop takes d7 was the right move. And there was like a world where I was a little bit scared of my knight getting trapped. For some reason, I was like, can my knight get out of here? Like, I don't really have any squares. But he's like he's fully unable to solve the problem of this square. And I am able to, in fact, get my knight out. Of course, after the move. Well, after the move bishop to g3, I would get mine out. But he doesn't do that. He goes knight b takes on d7. Clearly, he wants to, like, reroute into the center, hit my bishop, maybe. I don't know, but okay, bishop g3. Rook a8 is an interesting move. He doesn't want to put this rook on here because he's worried about his f7 pawn. Okay, I understand. I bring the knight back. I decide to bring my c knight forward to try and get more trades because I'm like, okay, I'm up 2 pawns. The more pieces I trade, the better I'm going to be doing. And I saw this line. Okay, knight takes on d5. Knight takes, and if he takes on b2, I'm going to play the move rook to c7, hit the knight, hit the pawn, win this pawn. I would have an outside passer, and this pawn is still weak, and my rook is on the 7th rank, and I'm just much, much more better at the game, so I'm going to win the game. Yeah. f5 though. And now I realize I can win even more. I can win even more. I play the move. I decide, okay. After f5, I decide, well, the first thing I'm going to do is play the move h3 because it doesn't really hurt my position. I'm going to kick his bishop back, and I'm going to get an extra square for my bishop, and my king is going to have a left. Play h3. My opponent goes bishop to h5. Not too sure why he played that. I was expecting bishop to e2 actually and trying to get this bishop back in the game, but he decides to go for this, and I realize here that my opponent blundered again. And now I'm able to win not just the up 2 pawns, I'm able to win a rook with the move bishop d6. And his rook he simply does not have enough to defend the rook. If he can't go here because of course the knight hits that. If he goes here, I can play the move knight to c7, at the very least hit this rook, open up an attack on this rook. I'm going to be getting an exchange for the bishop here probably, and I'm going to be winning the game. And that's the same story if he goes to rook c7, and I'm just going to be winning the game. I was fully expecting him to play the move rook to c7 here, because rook to c7 tries to get the bishop back into the game. And if you play rook to g8, then this would be a worse situation. Just for example, rook to g8, knight to c7. My opponent probably has to go here. I would take on g8, king takes on g8. His bishop is still out of the game, and I'm doing quite well. I'm going to play a move like knight to d5. He's going to have this weakness. He's going to never really be able to take this pawn because I'm always going to have this counterplay, and I'm always going to be able to pick up the pawn back and just be completely winning. And if he stops that, I'm going to play b3 and just be fine. So that's why he played rook to f7. A little bit of instructive thing there for you. Of course, he is trying to survive. I play knight to c7. He goes rook to d8, which is interesting. His idea is to go after my bishop. Very much makes sense. Bishop takes f7, bishop takes f7, and I play the move b3, simply stopping him from taking this pawn, stopping him from taking this pawn, and I'm saying, well, now you don't have any bishop c4, I'm just completely winning. Game goes on though. Knight to b6. He's trying to make some pressure. He's trying to get out after my pawns. He's maybe be able to make a draw if he trades up this pawn for these two. And I'm also bad at the game, and he also knows how to draw a bishop and rook versus rook scenario. But whatever, he doesn't do it. I'm sorry, whatever. I play the move bishop to c5 first, hitting the, trying to get some trades going, and I thought that my opponent would play the rook to d7. I would play knight to b6. This is all very shoddy calculation, very quickly done. He takes. I played the move knight to e8. He takes the pawn. I take here. He takes, and I wasn't too sure if I had something better there. Maybe I had some like rook c8 or rook to c7 ideas to try and bring the other rook in, and I wasn't too sure that I had much there. But I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to go for. Hopefully he's not able to get this bishop and rook versus rook scenario, and I'm going to be able to easily convert and win the game. He goes for this, rook to d2, and now I take a long think, and I figure out my plan. Actually, I take a long think here, and I figure out my plan. Maybe it wasn't the last move, whatever. I take a long think here. And here I decide, how am I going to be able to get this going? Because if I go with this idea that I had previously of knight to a8, then he takes, I take, he takes, he has some pressure on my king. It's just a 4v3, which would be drawn if it was just rooks on the board. And if somehow he's able to get rid of both of these pawns, trade off these three for these four, then we're going to get into a position where he has the rook and the bishop. And I don't really want to get into that because that's just a draw. So I'm like, then that means knight a8 isn't the right move. And is it the right move? Definitely not. It's fine, actually. It's like +3, +4. No, but my move was a lot better. Then I'm like, okay, if it's not that, of course I can have that on the back burner if I really need it. There's also on the back burner is the move knight to b5, by the way, which I briefly calculated. Rook a2, I played knight to d4, defending the pawn. If he trades, I'm going to, at the very least, be able to like go check here, go rook to e1, I up my exchange, and I should be completely winning because this pawn is going to be lost. I'm swarming his king, something like this, and I'm going to be winning the game. And I was like, okay, at the very least, they have that move. But then I realize that he has nothing. And I see this idea, rook f to d1. He takes, I take. I'm getting in here. He's not able to take my pawns. I'm winning the game. Okay, well then he can't take. If he takes on a2, I'm going to go with this check. If he goes back with the bishop, I'm going to play this move knight to e6. I'm going to try and trade off his bishop, and I'm threatening the move rook c8, which would win the bishop and win the game. Okay, well that's kind of getting cool. What else is there? Okay, so if he goes here, here, and here, and plays move king to h7, I'm going to play rook to d7, skewer both of his bishops. He probably has to move one. If he goes here, he loses because knight to e8 hits the bishop, hit with the rook, it's pinned to the king. I win a bishop, I win the game. Okay, cool. Let's say he doesn't do that. Let's say he plays king to g6. How will I be able to win the game? Rook to c6. Seems pretty obvious. I should be winning every single time. So I play rook f d1. 40-second think. Rook a2, rook d8, king h7, rook d7, king g6. Knight to d5, I decide to play first. My idea with knight to d5 was that I am now threatening this move rook to c6, which would pick up the bishop. And if you take here, I was just going to recapture. And you're not winning the pawn anymore. And that's the big point. And now I have this idea of this. So I go knight to d5. My opponent goes bishop to e6 and rook c6. And he loses. Can't defend the bishop. Just can't defend it. He actually just can't defend it. His king can't get close. Both of these are defended by the rook pinning the bishop to the king. And there's no back rank ideas because rook a1, I have king to h2. Which is very lucky that I played h3 back 10 moves ago here. Yeah. And now there's an M on the evaluation. He decides to go king to h5. I take the bishop. He goes g4. I take the other bishop, and my opponent decides to resign. Which is a little bit disappointing because I saw this cool line. I thought he was going to try to play g3, just go Hail Mary. He's threatening a back rank checkmate, and then I would able to checkmate with a pawn, which would be like the cherry on top for this game. But of course, it was losing, and you don't have to play till checkmate. And yeah, that's how I got to my new peak rating, and hopefully I will hit 2300 soon. Also, by the way, 2370 win is very, very nice. Either way, that's all we got for your day. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive, all the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, do along with the YouTubers tell you to do. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.